gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast.
It starts like a carnival at dusk. Lights blinking against a bruised purple sky, music drifting sweet and harmless through the air. The tables glow like altars, polished and patient, whispering promises in the language of almost. You step forward not because you're desperate, but because the wheel is spinning and it feels like destiny has a rhythm. The chips stack like tiny monuments to hope, bright and weightless in your palm, until they begin to feel heavier than stone. Each hand dealt is a heartbeat. Each roll of the dice is a thunderclap that cracks open your chest and spills adrenaline into your veins. Losses slide across the felt like quiet assassins, but the wins, the wins, explode like fireworks behind your eyes, convincing you the night still owes you something. By morning, the carnival lights flicker sickly pale, and the music has turned into a dull ringing that won't leave your ears. Your pockets hang empty like abandoned promises, and the wheels keep spinning long after you've stopped believing in luck. What began as a dance with chance becomes a leash around your throat, pulling you back to the table where hope and ruin wear the same bright smile. I'm Kevin Donaldson, always here with Mike Felice, and welcome to the Suffering Podcast. If you're a fan of overcoming adversity and overcoming suffering, then we're for you, because that's what we do here, and that's the stories that we highlight. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, please comment, ring the bell so you can get notified of all of our new content, and now you can join. And of course, follow us on all social media so you can find out what we're up to when we're up to it. On this episode of the Suffering Podcast, I have my first Australian in studio right now, and we're sitting across from Michael Zhang, and we're going to talk about the suffering of gambling, because Michael has devoted part of his life to uncovering. It's something that I've witnessed growing up in the Atlantic City area, this undercover addiction that seems perfectly acceptable to the world. Michael, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
I think this is going to be something interesting because I think we've chewed a lot of the same dirt when it comes to gambling. Before we get into anything, let's throw a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody as police, and we certainly don't trust anybody as podcasters, but we do trust the guys over at Toyota Hackensack. So if you're looking for a car, go to toyotahackensack.com and let them find you a car. But don't forget to tell them the Suffering Podcast sent you. And while you're at it, go to thesufferingpodcast.com. Get yourself some Dent Today's coffee. It's a delicious cup of coffee, and 100% of the proceeds go to Dented Development Project to help repair dents caused by suffering in first responders, veterans, and their families. That's 100% of the proceeds. It's a great cup of coffee as well. So, Michael, each week we start off with a social media question. This question comes from Playa Landing. What part of your life looks strong on the outside, but required the most internal work? You know, we show people what we want to show them, okay? But inside, we're struggling with something. We're fighting something. And I do this on a daily basis. So I'm going to throw this question off to you. What do you think?
People who watch and look at me and they think, oh, this is an Australian guy, but he's also an Asian guy.
You threw me off with that, I got to tell you. Yeah, you threw me off. It's just the look and the voice is not what I'm used to as an American.
And the reason I say that is to answer this question, it's got a lot to do with me being a second-generation Chinese Australian. So I was raised with a lot of what you would expect, kind of the pressures of performance and achievement and making yourself the kind of the best version of yourself, but only in a certain way. So for me, it was, I may appear a certain way now, but kind of inside, I've had to deal with a lot of processing that, being second generation Chinese Australian, the pressures that come with that, and kind of being between worlds and really figuring out within me who I am and being really authentically Michael, not being that identity or not being the influences and then the performance pressures that it would put on me. So at the end of the day, like for me, it's about being a more authentic version of myself, and understanding that may look any number of ways. It's not like one certain cookie cutter way, and I embrace that now, whereas before I didn't understand it, and it's something I've been working on for a long time. And now I feel like I'm in a position where I keep evolving and looking at different parts of myself, and that makes me feel way more fulfilled than I ever did before.
You know, it's funny because in America, you have first-generation immigrants coming in, and they want their kids to assimilate to a certain extent. And then when they start to get too far, they're like, "Oh, this generation, they're out of control." And where I live, there's a large Indian population, and I love the Indian population because they assimilate so well. But then you have the old timers, the first generation people. They see their kids going out there, and they're doing all the American things that American kids do, and you'll see them try to rein them back in.
Yeah.
Like, no, this is you're in America now. Yeah. This is what you do. And did you get that pressure from your parents to kind of like keep some of the Chinese ethics and morals?
Ultimately for me, it was about like your performance is your value. And that was kind of the morals behind it. And it's a very cultural thing that runs generations back. And then being in Australia, having to perform in that setting as well, it's all a lot of pressure. So for me now, it's overcoming a lot of that pressure, realizing that my performance isn't my value and my value is grounded in something else entirely. But performance can be a part of that. Sometimes you put on a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You be this version of you, that version of you, and it all kind of coalesces into a more unified person. So for me, that's how I would, like to think that everyone should strive for some version of that, not just be something that others expect you to be who you are, but then be not just the one version, but be multiple versions of who you are. That's okay.
Well, everybody has predisposed notions of certain ethnic groups in America. And listen, for those people who think that they don't, okay, when there's a driver on the road and they're doing stupid things on the road and you pull up next to them and you see whoever's driving and you sort of go, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So everybody has those predisposed notions. But the nice thing about what you just said is, I'm going to break those barriers. I'm going to break those chains. I'm just going to be me.
Yeah.
See, for me, people see me on camera all the time, and they think, okay, well, you're confident, you're steadfast, you can recall words good. People have no idea how shy I am and how much internal work it does. The internal work that has to happen in order for me to get in front of a camera, in order for me to speak coherently, in order to have rational thoughts when my guest is speaking and trying to listen and do all those things. I work on that every single time. I got a lecture coming up that there's some high-level people that are going to be in the audience. And don't think that I'm not in my own head. I'm in my own head constantly. I'm like, oh my God, the pressure to perform, the pressure to do all these things. It's ever present there. And it's not, so here's the crazy thing. I will work myself up into a tizzy until I get up on stage. And then once I get up on stage, it's like it doesn't exist anymore. It's the strangest thing in the world. So, but what that is that's fear. That's the acronym FEAR, that false evidence appearing real. I built something up in my head that wasn't real. And then once I go out there and I overcome that, I'm like, oh, you know what? It wasn't that bad.
And also those are both valid parts of you. Like that, those can both be true at the same time. Kevin is this, he's also that. And that makes up the fuller version of Kevin. And I think that's the beautiful part about being human, that we can find those parts of ourselves and make it what we wish and do it in a way that further validates who we are and allows us to be the best versions of those selves. I say selves plural because there's not just one. That's what I've realized in my life.
Yeah, the big thing about me is I'm too stubborn to care if I fail. That's the one thing about me. If I go up there and I fall flat on my face, I'll get up and try it again the next day.
Good for you.
Yeah, that's the only thing I got going for me is my work ethic. So, Playa Landing, thank you so much for sending that question in. Keep sending in your questions, and we will try to get them on the air. So, Michael, you grew up in Australia. Whereabouts did you grow up in Australia?
I grew up in Sydney specifically, which is in the state of New South Wales, and I grew up in the Western Sydney area, and it's a very multi-cultural place, very diverse area, which explains you look at me and you think, oh, so that's where you grew up. And
you have a fair amount of Americans living there too, because I know during World War II that was a stopover point to go to, I think it was Japan. And so a lot of service members met girls there. Yeah. They stayed, and so I know that. Plus, it's a prison colony. So
yeah, it's true. No, but it was a lovely place to grow up, and I've spent half my adult life there as well. And it's interesting because where I'm from in Western Sydney, it is actually the most gambling harm is happening there.
Really?
And yeah, it's happening there. Like it's happening in areas that like I can think of specific areas in kind of southwestern Sydney, western Sydney, where we'll put it this way, the folks who are experiencing the harm, they're not exactly in the best financial position.
It's usually the way it is because they're chasing
Yes.
something.
Yes, they are chasing something, and they believe that gambling is a part of that solution, and it's not. And what we're seeing there is record, record gambling losses, specifically on the slot machines. Because in Australia, it's kind of different, where you've got gambling at every corner. Like physically, you can go to the
It's like
club
in the
pub.
supermarkets and
Yep.
stuff. Yeah.
More so the clubs and the pubs and kind of areas that are designated for it, but still it's available essentially everywhere. So, the case study of kind of Australia and gambling is very interesting because that kind of explains why Australia is number one, per capita gambling losses in the world when you've got it available and accessible to you. And that's not even factoring in the reality that now it's on the phone. So, now it's available and accessible in that way, even more so. And that's not just Australia. That's pretty much the whole world.
That's global.
Yeah.
That's absolutely global. So it's do they have casinos or is it just slot machines?
It's mostly like slot machines, and similar types of electronic gaming machines, they call them. And there are casinos as well, but there's like one or two big casinos and a couple around the country, but it's not, it's a little bit different in that regard. Whereas the gambling, land-based is at these clubs, and at these pubs mostly. So if you walk in, it's kind of like that, a little bit like that Las Vegas feel, when you walk in and you see, not as glamorous, but still you see, the lights and you hear the sounds, and it's that sort of effect. So if you're a kid growing up in that environment, I certainly saw it, they kind of try to section it off, but you still see what's going on. And it's I think the exposure definitely has a lot to do with how you ultimately come into the levels of gambling harm that we're seeing in Australia or in America. I think that has a lot to do with it.
So when you're a kid and you're looking at these flashing lights, because kids are drawn to that stuff. That's what they do. You've seen this before, and we see this in the United States on a very smaller level. Go into any 7-Eleven or any convenience store, and you'll watch people spend $200 on lottery tickets, and they're just scratching them off. And there's a part of me that says, "Oh my God, like what are you looking for? What are you looking for?" Because bottom line is, even if you hit, you're probably going to put it all back. It's not going to solve your problems. There's something deep rooted in there. When there's the cheap part of me that says, "Hey, you could have just won $200 by not buying a lottery ticket." I but maybe it's because of the way I grew up. I watched those casinos. I watched them go up. My friends' parents all worked at them or worked on them, and I used to watch people when I was a kid standing out on the street corner begging for money so they can put gas in their car and go home. Because you got to remember, in New Jersey, that was it. This was before India casinos and the Poconos opened. You went to Atlantic City to gamble. That's what it was. And it's gone through certain different evolutions throughout the years. They try to make it more family friendly, and it's not really. But at the core of it, they're trying to get your money. But you as a kid, you're seeing that, and you're seeing these. I hate to use the word degenerates, but that's the only word I can think of right now. People who are just so strapped in and so addicted to this stuff. What did that do to you as a kid?
The messaging that I got from this was I actually got a very negative message growing up about gambling. Basically being told, if you do this, you're just going to end up losing all of your money, and it's not worth it for that reason, and it's not going to help you have a better life. At the same time, I got that message while I was also being exposed to, you mentioned the scratch, they call them scratchies in Australia, and then I'm participating in that too. But guess what? I never won. And if I'd won, it may have been different, because you can believe whatever you want about gambling. You can be told any message, no matter how negative. And yet, if you go and you play, and whatever the form of gambling may be, and you win, that experience can change the whole perspective that you had, and it could change your whole trajectory going forward too, because it gives you a different notion, an idea of what is possible. It is possible to win. So you mentioned folks who are suffering from gambling, and you wonder, how did they get to this point? I mean, it all started innocently. None of them, I would say most of them, maybe some of them, but most of them didn't grow up like thinking, oh, I'm imagining my future as a gambler, and I can't wait to fulfill this vision for my life. It's going to be the best life that I can have. That's not how you imagine it, especially when you're told such a negative a message growing up, which it's funny because I say that growing up decades ago now, I don't think it's the same message these days. It's a very different message now.
So even going back, if you go back to the romanticized version of the Old West gambler, sitting at a card table, Wild Bill Hickok's aces and eights, and that's their profession. That was his profession when he was killed. And you had professional gamblers. That's what they did. The truth of that is even them, they were always broke. They were always broke because the house always wins. Over enough time, the house always wins. The only successful gamblers, and it's not even gambling, there's two of them. So if you could look at the World Poker Tour, these guys aren't gamblers. They're mathematicians.
True.
Okay? That's not gambling. They're going on clues. They're going on hands. They're going on percentages. And I played a lot of tournament poker because I like tournament poker. But what I really liked about tournament poker is there was a buy-in, and that was it. Or did you ever read the book Bringing Down the House?
No.
Bringing Down the House. So MIT has a blackjack club. All right. So Bringing Down the House is the book about that. I forget who the author of it was. They actually came up with a system for counting cards where they could stack the deck in their favor. And it wasn't illegal. So the difference in America, and I don't know whether this is like this in Australia, if it's a privately owned casino like Las Vegas, they can kick you out. In Atlantic City, it's a state-run casino. They can't kick you out, but what they can do is they can change the shoe. They can change the card shoe. So they can at any time switch that shoe out, and your card count is completely gone. If they suspect you doing it, the only thing is can't use mechanical devices. But these were kids playing brain games, so that's the only successful gamblers. And for all intents and purposes, they're cheating. But there is no success for it. There's no longevity to it. And I watched it growing up like you did, and I was like, this is disgusting.
It has an effect on someone that you on the outside you see a certain version of them, but on the inside they've been compromised in such a severe way. They don't even understand how badly they've been compromised. And to your point, the poker players, the successful poker players, that's not gambling. That's a job. That's a profession. That's a career. And the unsuccessful ones, though, I mean, that's debatable. Some of them may be gambling. Some of them may not be. But still, when you're successful, it means over time you're making more money than you're losing. And that's the definition for the poker player. The other example that you gave, I think, is a very good one as well. You can find advantage in some games. And if you find them and if you take advantage of them, then you could possibly win until it gets reset or until, you get kicked out. And even on, I've seen this before, even on sports books, where if you end up being one of the winners over time, oh, I'm sorry, we're not serving you anymore. This is what happens.
They changed the rules. They moved the goalposts.
Always change the rules. And that's why, even if you win over time, unless you do it strictly professionally, which very few people do compared to the general population of people who gamble, then it's not sustainable. You're never going to win on gambling. That's just the reality of it.
Like, what makes a person consistently chase that rush? Is it the adrenaline? I personally don't think it's the money. I personally don't think it's the money. Yeah, they want to win and stuff, but I think it's the adrenaline rush.
It's the meaning that's associated with the winning and the money. So I would say, what does it mean for somebody? What need do they believe it's meeting for them? And what are they really wanting out of the gambling? I would put it down to their motivation and trying to understand it at that level. There's not one single answer, but maybe one that I tend to gravitate towards is when you win and there's money involved and you feel a sense of validation where you're like, that feels good. That's good.
Endorphins, oxytocin, all that stuff.
Right now, dopamine is all the rage. And
Are you ready to enhance your skills and provide the best care to those who need it the most? I'm Kevin Donaldson.
I'm Sherry Alsop. Our trauma-informed training is here to help, and we've been traveling across the country delivering this essential need to departments and organizations of every size, shape, and makeup.
We come to you with on-site training so you don't have to worry about travel or scheduling conflicts.
This isn't just a class, it's an interactive experience. You'll learn directly from subject matter experts who teach from a victim's point of view, putting you in the shoes of those who have experienced trauma.
This approach allows you to understand trauma on a deeper level and to better serve the individuals you work with.
We'll guide you through new interview techniques that prioritize a victim-centered approach, ensuring safety and empathy in every conversation.
And for those of you in law enforcement or other fields, our training includes post-credits, giving you the extra added value and recognition for your commitment to professional growth.
We offer references upon request to show just how effective our training can be.
Don't miss the opportunity to improve your understanding of trauma and make a real difference in the lives of those you serve. Get in touch with us today by going to sherryalsop.com and let us bring trauma-informed training to your organization.
Together, we can make a lasting impact.
When you feel that way, you start to anticipate, like when you're gambling anytime, right? Even before you know the outcome, that anticipation's giving you a sort of high as well. So you really get kind of stuck and caught in this trap, in this cycle, and it's so hard to come out of, because then when you're you end up justifying in so many ways as well, like feeling like, well, I'm gambling because I just need to escape. Well, guess what? You want to try to escape through gambling, you're going to end up feeling like you need to escape from gambling then as well, and then it's more of a trap, as a result. So it's just one of those things that gets more and more messy and problematic and tricky to navigate when you're in it. And yet the belief, right? I mean, the belief is true, which is you can win. You can win at any time. It is possible. So that can happen. But the other reality is also more true, and it's not one that they process so well, which is over time, if you keep gambling and you've already seen it, but you're not focusing on it and you choose to forget it, you're going to lose, you're going to keep losing. That's how the game works. That's how the system has been essentially rigged, not in your favor. But how often are we focusing on those things in the moment? In the moment when we're having those urges, that's not the messaging that we're getting. That's not what we're telling ourselves. The very powerful voice that's compelling and that's saying it is possible to win, and just imagine again the feeling that you have, and then you'll know it can be worth it.
So you begin chasing the money, and then all of a sudden you're chasing a feeling. So I think one of the things that the feeling of winning makes you forget is your discipline. And I'll give you a prime example. So my brother got married in Las Vegas, and it was my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, we're out there, and we were so exhausted by the end of the night. We went to bed early, and we always woke up early, and we would go to breakfast, but breakfast didn't open until like 6:30. We're up at like 5:30 in the morning. So what I would do is just, throw $100 on the table. If I lost it, I lost it, and I was done. Like literally that was it. But I used to play roulette, and I have a system for roulette that it's not going to make you rich. But what I would do is I said, okay, I'm going to make enough to pay for breakfast. And more times than not, I would. But I also had the discipline to say, okay, I made enough for breakfast. I'm gone. I'm out. And so I'm like the worst gambler in the world because I'm cheap as hell. And
you're the worst customer, right? For
yeah,
them.
but I do love playing cards. I love the rush of playing cards. What card comes down? So I understand the the addiction to it. I just don't understand how you can lack discipline so much to forget all that stuff and empty your bank account and throw it in there. It's so foreign to me, but I know it's a real addiction. It's no different than drugs.
If you see gambling as the solution to your problem, and if you start imagining, hey, if only I could win this amount, and sometimes it actually happens, Kevin. Sometimes you actually do win the amount you're imagining and even more. And when you start thinking about those things, when you have them front of mind, that's what really compels you to want to gamble. Because if it's the solution and you've got a problem and you recognize that, then this is your kind of go-to. But as we know, it's not the real solution. It's more of a fake solution at the end of the day. And it's really devastating for somebody because and it's so innocent too, actually. Like that's why
It's acceptable.
yeah.
It's acceptable for a bunch of guys to get together and throw down some money on the game. Kids are doing it
Yeah.
with the fantasy football. I watch my son do it, and they play for stupid things, but it's still gambling. Okay, they play for stupid things. They play for a trophy. They play for this. It's there's no money involved because they don't have any money. But I can see how that can, you win your fantasy league, and that could catapult you into maybe going into a sports book or something, or what's the big one online now? BetOnline.com. Okay, betonline.com. They can go on there. Anybody can go on there anonymously. Casinos are real good at faking you. So if you think about a casino, there's no clocks. They pump oxygen in there to keep you awake. Shiny lights everywhere, and they just keep. There's no money. You don't touch money. You're lucky if you touch chips. So they got you.
And what you're describing is the physical variation of gambling. Right now, we have the digital forms of it that
Scary.
have taken that to a whole other level now. Like in terms of how accessible it is, it can be available anytime. In terms of the offerings on there, what you could be gambling on. Sports feels new considering in the US, it really started to pick up from 2018 after what happened with the Supreme Court and the ruling being overturned. But then you think about like even within sports, you engage in live betting, and then how quickly everything can happen. It's all been engineered in a way now to make it so frictionless, so easy to do, so that you can do as many bets, you can gamble spend more time on there, you can put a lot more money in there than you would have done if this wasn't available and accessible in the same way. And that's not even including the fact that now I mentioned prediction markets. Now you've got another variation of gambling that is essentially like opening up the offerings even further. Like you're gambling on politics and life events and things that you never would have really had access to before. And now, the whole system, to me, it really seems quite engineered now to perpetrate almost like a fraud or like a scam or a con job or something on people, because that's really what it is. Ultimately, it's a massive deception that we're dealing with.
But it's somebody making money, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's not always the casinos. Like the casinos, yes, they're making money. They're a business. I get it. I understand it. But it's not always the money. It's somebody, there's a power behind it. And I always wonder, like, whenever something like this comes out where they're basically legalizing drugs. That's basically what they're doing by legalizing gambling online, or there's a casino at every street corner now. Who is behind all this stuff, engineering this stuff, as you said?
The stakeholders, just people who are ultimately, seeing the money. It's like a wealth transfer in a funny way. Like you're kind of seeing this where, we've got, and I say that because when you look at most of the revenue coming within the gambling industry, it's not like equally distributed across all the people gambling. You have like a relatively small number of the customers. They're the ones who are the repeat customers who produce the recurring revenue. And I mean, maybe you could even say it's again, if we talk about the direction, it's true, but the exact number may be off a little bit. But it's something like, if you had 80% of the revenue coming from like 20% of the customers. So it's really set up in a way to get that recurring business, to get that person, and to exploit really any psychological or other vulnerability that someone may have.
Feed them drinks.
No matter what it is.
Well, they want you sitting there, so they're going to feed you free drinks.
Yep.
Okay, that's not free, but
free drinks, and then we can say free drinks is one, and then on the apps, free bets. We'll give you bonus bets.
Yep. You got to and it's not real money.
Yeah.
They put things in casinos. Vegas is really good at this. They put things in casinos for the kids because they know you got to travel with your kids, and the kids go over here, and all like they genetically engineer this stuff to make it conducive for you to go in there and dump everything. So I'm sure watching what you do, and what's the name of the place you work right now?
Incumental.
Okay, so throughout your journeys, throughout being involved in this industry and seeing what you saw, why don't you tell us some of the horror stories some of the real horror stories that gambling, and these are not people betting on football games.
Yeah. I would say every client that I ever worked with before as a psychologist, I would say every one of them was their own horror story. Like you look at their life situation, their life circumstance, and which one had the goal of, I want to lose $100,000 on gambling in my life? Which one of them had the goal of, I want to lose 500,000? And I mean, I've met with people who've lost millions. So I mean, no matter how much money has been lost to gambling, to me, that's like every one of them is a horror story in a way. But what I would say is that earlier, you mentioned like a degeneracy, and I actually don't know if it's a degeneracy because of a lot of the folks that I've met. Maybe for some it is, but a lot of the folks that I've worked with, it's just ordinary people. They're ordinary people with lives just like us that are trying to make a better life for ourselves and for our families, and we get caught up in this thing, and it completely derails it.
They're hope dealers. That's what casinos are. They're hope dealers.
Yeah.
They deal in hope, and they use it as trade. Hey, you have the opportunity to change your life if you just do this. And it never works out that way. When I say degenerates, because I grew up around mobsters. Right? I grew up around gangsters. They're bookmakers. You know, that's how you used to have to make your bets. Right. And most of those guys who were bookmakers, they're never business guys. They were degenerate gamblers.
Yeah, that's different.
Yeah, they would get their money from their book, and then they would gamble it away, and then they borrow money in order to pay off this person, and they constantly owe people money. Gambling's a little bit different in casinos in traditional modern day society now. You know, it's you can take markers, but they're dangerous. You can take loans, but you know, you eventually always got to pay it back. There's no end game to it. That's why I'm interested in the psychology of it. But again, the horror stories that you've seen people lose their entire wealth.
The battles we fight are hard and taxing on the soul. Fighting a battle that seems impossible to win. The stressful calls that give us wounds that cannot be seen.
These moments leave scars. They leave dents. Sometimes we just need to sit and talk over coffee.
Finding a moment of peace in the comfort of decompression with those whom you share difficulties. Sharing moments with those who are the only ones who understand. Our peace comes in the quiet moments we can share with our brothers and sisters.
It's just a moment to sit, listen, and let it out. We may be dented, but we are not broken. The Suffering Podcast. Dented Ace Coffee was created to bring the peace to the protectors. Dented Ace Coffee is a tribute to my brother Mike Felice and all the others who couldn't find their peace. 100% of the proceeds will go directly to Dented Development Project so that we can begin to repair the dents caused by suffering in veterans, first responders, and their families. The Suffering Podcast's Dented Ace Coffee. Get yours today by visiting thesufferingpodcast.com.
Think about this, right? When you get to that level that you're actually in a therapy room with a psychologist, and you're like, why am I here? It's gambling. Like,
well, do you get court? Is it court ordered that you go sit down with somebody?
So before, I actually used to work at a clinic where it was a specialized. Had a specialized treatment program. So some of them would be, but then a lot of them would be kind of coming after the rock bottom, you know, for whatever reason. They've been compelled by family members and loved ones to come, or they just realize that, oh gosh, like I really don't know anywhere else to turn, and I've tried this, that, and the other way. That's the other part, right? Just about everyone I've ever worked with was actively trying to overcome it. It's not like they say, like, well, I just accept that I'm just like this, and I'm just going to keep gambling, and I'm just like, it's such a double life that you're living. Like the one part of you that is like, I'm totally stuck in the gambling. The other part of you, I'm trying every which way to actually get out. And you know, fortunately for some people, they do find that way out, but it takes a lot. Like and it's not like, it's not a glamorous process like gambling is. It doesn't make you feel all exactly the same way as gambling does. But it really, it takes a lot of somebody to kind of just say, you know what, I'm going to try to undo all of this after it's already been done. And you think about undoing the financial damage, undoing the relational damage, the mental health damage.
It's a trust issue.
The trust and trust with oneself. I mean, there's too much to undo. And that's what I'm saying. Once it gets to that certain point, you got nowhere else to turn. You kind of have to turn to somebody. And, and I realize and recognize that with the folks who are struggling. And again, I genuinely believe, like, we can frame horror stories like as in like, this is worse than that. But the reality is it was the worst for every single person. Like, imagine the life that they could have had and then look at the life that they had because gambling was involved in it. That's a horror story, Yeah.
Is there a point where these people who come in and see you, if I can just get back, like, what's their end game? If I can just get back to even, if I can just get the money back I lost, like what? And we all know the reality of that. Even if they got all their money back, they're still going to gamble.
That's right.
Because it's a sickness.
Well, then it feels like you're playing with house money, and it's like, well, it doesn't feel like my money. It feels like kind of pretend money even at that point. And I mean, it's just how it goes. Almost everyone who wins big will end up re-gambling those winnings.
If I'm a gambler and I have a gambling addiction and I come into your company and I say, listen, Michael, I need help.
Yeah.
Okay, I've gambled away more money than I can count. I don't have any more life savings. I don't even know how I'm going to pay my mortgage next week. What are some things that you do for them?
The number one key is when someone is experiencing that urge to gamble. That could happen at any time of day. And there's definitely, points and experiences that may make somebody more vulnerable to gambling. And when you have those urges, though, what do you do, right? Because for most people, the solution to those urges to gamble, which again, those urges are an embodiment of what we talked about earlier of like, I'm anticipating I could win. And then I'm anticipating I'm already starting to feel it. I'm already starting to, to have that experience inside of me before I even have gambled, right? So now the default, kind of the status quo is, I have that and I can try to fight it. I can try to overcome it. And maybe I can, distract myself for long enough and come out of it, or I can just gamble. And too many people just default to, it's not worth, like, I'm just going to gamble. It's so much easier to just gamble. And then the urge, like it feels like it goes away immediately. You're like, I'm feeling something.
You get your fix.
Yeah, you got your fix. And then, this is exactly what I was looking for, until it's not exactly what I was looking for. And then it's too late at that point. So for me, the starting point is really, what do we do in the moments when the urges happen? Because if we can just pull out, like I was saying, like on the phone now, like the phone is essentially, you've mentioned casinos a few times. The phone is essentially the casino now, okay? You can access not only sports betting, not only prediction markets, but also online forms of casino gambling as well. It's all on there now.
But the big thing with the phone is it's hidden. Yeah. Like these people who are addicted, they know they have an issue. Yeah. Like they know something's not right. And now instead of going into the casino and showing your face and saying, yeah, I'm just this horrible gambling addict, they can do it inside. They can do it in the comfort of their own home. Nobody sees them. Nobody judges them.
Exactly.
And now they're just free to their own devices. They can get that rush, which I don't understand. Like, I don't understand how they get the same rush off of a phone, but it's gambling. But gambling is no different than any other drug, but it's just more acceptable. And if you're a heroin addict, and you have this bad addiction and you can't shake it, people look at you differently. But if you say you're addicted to gambling, well, all right, let's go have a drink. Let's go get something to eat. Nobody stays away from you because of that. You don't have this mark on you, this stigma on you.
And especially now when you look at just how acceptable it is, you're being socialized into it. It's around sports. We play sports growing up, and now guess what? Maybe we stop playing and then we start gambling now. We start betting on the same sports and we feel like we maybe have some advantage. I'm speaking to young men in particular. Maybe we feel like we have some advantage, we have some insight, and maybe we got a strategy that can work, and we know, and then we feel like it's worth doing and being a part of it. Everyone's doing it. And when it becomes a problem, guess what? To your point, it's all hidden. It's all private. You know it, by the way, if you're on anyone listening to this, if you're on like a chat with any friends and you guys are, just doing some fun recreational betting together, and you realize, oh, one of my friends used to be on here and he's not actually, and I know that he was gambling a bit because he was quite active and he's not so much anymore. I wonder what's happened to him. It's probably because he doesn't want you to know what he's been doing, and maybe he's only saying, oh, yeah, maybe contributing a little bit here and there, but really is hiding a lot of what's happening behind the scenes. We can't go look up like people's bank accounts and see what's really happening, but the people know. The people who are actually experiencing the gambling, they know the debts that are mounting because of gambling. They know the efforts they have to go to now to get money that they didn't have to before. And when it comes to like the problem that I'm solving right now is really at a psychological level, what is going on for you that you have this sort of like gambling to you appears to be a way of meeting a need of some sort, and to try to help you answer that question so that it no longer feels the same way, but in the short term, to do it by confronting those urges. So when you have urges to gamble, if you got like you can satisfy those urges by going on any sort of gambling app. What about the recovery apps? There's an asymmetry here where it's like you have all of this available, accessible, frictionless, okay? The speed at which you can do it, everything is there on the gambling side, but on the recovery side, very little is there. I mean, there are some things there, but very little is there. And part of what I wanted to do, because I felt this need with my clients as well, because they're telling me between 1 hour a week counseling sessions, like, what do we do between the sessions? What about when we're like at a particular at-risk time? What do we do in real time, right? So I'm like, well, in real time, and they're like, can you help me in those moments? Well, I can't be on the phone like in all those moments, but maybe I could produce something that can help you in those moments, that can be as accessible, that can be available to you, so that you're not just faced with the dilemma of, oh, yeah, am I going to gamble? Am I going to gamble now or gamble later? Because the urge now, I actually have real choices available. Like, am I going to gamble or am I going to work on my recovery or my journey away from it, my life after gambling? I'm trying to shake things up, and I know that people. We kind of started today talking about parts of myself. I know people who are gambling have different parts of themselves. They're already leading double lives on the most part, and they're hiding the gambling life to many people who they love and who love them. And if only they had ways of further strengthening that life that's not gambling, that part of them that is beyond gambling.
I always said that I gravitate towards addicts. I'm an addict. Okay, I'm an alcoholic. All right, I've been sober 13 years, and it takes an incredible amount of discipline to stay sober. I always said that addicts are the best people to do business with, because if they're addicted and focused on some substance, but this is substances, okay? If they're addicted to this and hyper-focused on this, well, if you can channel that focus into something that's worthwhile and good and business-like, then they are ultra successful people.
100%.
Is gambling the same way? Because I don't know if and shame on me for this, but I don't know if I would be able to have somebody who has a gambling addiction to work for me, because I'd be afraid of embezzlement.
I would say that that's definitely a possibility, but at the same time, yes, like if you can properly and really overcome gambling, or at least on the journey to overcoming it, then 100%, you could get to the point where you could rebuild your life. You could be extremely successful. I think about some of the opposite of horror stories, like horror story turned success story. I think of those folks that I've worked with and where their life is now and what they've been able to rebuild after the devastation, the destruction, the harm, that gambling has caused them. And a lot of them say things like, it's the suffering that I went through, the adversity that I went through. I wouldn't trade it. Like I would do it again, because it actually helped me in a certain way, and then I learned certain things from it, and then it shaped the life that I have now, and I find new meaning as a result. And I look at that, and I think, and again, for me, it comes back to those parts of themselves. They've been able to integrate those parts in a very useful way, that allows them to build, that allows them to grow, that allows them to be the versions of themselves that are successful, that are purpose driven, that are forward looking, that are not stuck anymore. And that's a very beautiful thing for me when I hear the success stories of like,
Well, that's why you keep doing what you're doing.
I love doing it. I love to, and to your point, right? Some of these people, and I love how oftentimes after you've gone through the experience, you want to give back. And that I think that's part of the reason why you do this, right?
Correct.
So
it's 100% a reason.
You want to give back. And I see so many people feeling that drive. And I imagine a future where that's just going to grow. People who are overcoming, people who are doing it together and becoming, and then we're all working together. I appreciate that we have the time today. And then I think about all the people who are wanting to do the same, who are looking at their story, who are looking at their journey and thinking, how can I use this to help somebody? And being able to just work together and do it. That's a form of business to me. That's like, this is how we do it. This is how we can actually build together and how we can do it in a way that we're actually helping people as opposed to harming people.
If you think about it, your best drug counselors are former addicts.
Yeah.
I know this woman, Stacey Ellis. Stacey Ellis she really did had a very, very tough upbringing, but she was one of these people who lived on the street, not couch surfing. You stepped over her in some of the worst cities in New Jersey.
Wow.
And she is one of the most successful drug counselors. Now, if I had a gambling problem, I'm going to gravitate to somebody who has had that same problem and understand the internal struggle that I have. And it's the same thing with drugs and alcohol and any other sex addiction, which I got to be honest with you. I don't. I got a problem with the whole sex addicts thing.
Okay.
I'm like, dude, come on. You're having a lot of sex. Shame on you. Woe is me. So a former addict, whether it's gambling or whether it's drugs, to connect with somebody, and here's the problem. Like, you're giving these people help getting through the gambling addiction. Shame on them if they don't give back, because I always tell people whenever I'm out speaking or something, I always tell people my help is not free.
Yeah.
I don't want any money. I don't want anything in return. What I need you to do is when you get through the darkness, you need to reach out to somebody else. You need to pay that thing forward because that's what makes this stuff go away. But what it looks like with gambling is this stuff's never going to end. I never thought there would be online gambling on your phones. What's next? What's on the horizon? Do you have your thumb on that?
On the horizon's already here. Prediction markets, it's already here. And now we're gambling on everyday life. We've financialized basically gambling now, where it's like we're trading instruments. We're trading contracts. We're not gambling in the same way anymore. So on the horizon is gambling no longer being even framed as gambling. And yet it's going to be the same result for the people that keep going, because you're always up against something, when it comes to the house. In this case, with the prediction market companies, the way that it's set up is similar to poker, where some will, to your point, some will be quite successful at it. Most won't be. And yet, who's making the most money from it? The house, right? The companies. And that's something that is already here. And I don't even know. I didn't even want to think where we're going next, because I've already seen what's happened, over the last 10 years. And I've seen enough already.
Well, so in my mind, the United States stock market is legalized gambling. It's always been legalized gambling.
And for some, it really is truly gambling.
You're hoping that it hits. I have stocks, but they don't call it gambling. They call it investments.
And that's the thing, right? There are real investment is the opposite of gambling. So in that context, there is gambling and there also is investment. And there's probably more investment than there is gambling. And then there's the in-between too. So I think that's a very important distinction. And also a confusion that people are having now, where, especially when you have financialized instruments that really are gambling, you start to think, oh, I'm actually not gambling, I'm investing.
Some of the things you're saying, there's the prediction markets.
Yeah.
Well, every stockbroker will have prediction algorithms that they'll run things through. This is projected to hit here, and this is projected to hit here. Well, every time you step in a casino, you're projected to win the big jackpot, right?
Look at it over time. That's what I always say. You got to look at things over time. Like, what happens to stock markets over time? They generally go up. It's kind of, up and down, but we're trending upward. if we think about business opportunities, if they're successful, then they tend to go up. And look at where the trends are. And when it comes to someone, so if someone is gambling in the stock market, you're not going to see that. You're going to see the opposite. So, if they're feeling like, oh, I have to make this trade now because I can win this amount, that's the gambling mentality. And that's where it goes wrong for people. But I would say in that context, right, we are looking at a lot of positively, geared investment potential for people, and in other contexts too. But again, look at it from look at it from the perspective of the long term. What happens when you keep going? Are you trending up or are you clearly trending downward? If you're trending downward, it's probably gambling or close to it. And
well, that word gambling is ingrained into the United States lexicon. All right. So how many small business owners say, hey, I'm ready to take a gamble?
Yeah. And that's different, right? Like, I think that taking a risk is not the same necessarily as gambling. Because to me, gambling is guaranteed loss over time. So actually just even take over time out, guaranteed loss. That's really all it is. Because if you keep doing it and you notice the impact on you financially, and then the web of destruction it causes in your life, then it's not worth it. But it feels so different for people in the moment. And this is why I'm doing what I'm doing and why it's a struggle to really connect, like at the level of I'm really trying to understand. I'm showing you that I've worked with so many people who've gone through this, and yet it's just not a simple and clear picture, because like you said, a lot of it is hidden. So and a lot of it is, you got barriers up, you got conflicts inside, and this whole thing is very messy that I'm dealing with from the perspective of a recovery professional.
What are the statistics, if there are? I'm sure there's metrics on the statistics of people who they get clean, so to speak, of gambling, but then they relapse.
I mean, it depends on what you mean by clean, right?
They're not whether
Yeah.
it's like being a dry drunk. It's you're not clear of the addiction, you're just not gambling
So
right now.
I'll say this, that's if we're abstaining from gambling, that's not necessarily the same as we've overcome gambling or that we've worked on that. And examples that I usually refer to in this regard is, a lot of folks, they try something called self-exclusion. If you're at the casino venues and other places, you can say, well, I don't want to go in there, so I'm going to sign this agreement and then make sure you keep me out of it. And then there's other forms of that online as well, like through blocking software, where you can actually limit, what you can access on in terms of gambling. So that's one thing to actually say, I'm gonna try to take myself out of gambling. Okay?
That's a discipline thing, though, and that's something I appreciate. I appreciate the discipline that takes, because I know it's hard.
You can always find a way around something. If you put a block up, you can always find a way around that, okay? And I've seen this over and over again, and it doesn't necessarily work. It could work for people, but only if you do the hard work as well and say, I'm not just taking me out of gambling, I'm going to try to work on taking gambling out of me. That is more important, I believe, than just creating barriers and blockages, because no matter what you do, if you still have the intent, the desire, if you're still stuck in those cycles, and ultimately you still have this weird, toxic relationship with gambling, it'll find a way to come back. You got to work on that. And that's why I do what I do now. It's about like helping people who are, in this, like not just find easy way outs. There's no easy way out of this.
This takes a lot of work.
You got to work on this. You got to work on, like, if you've been gambling for several years, it's not going to be as easy as just saying, I'm going to stop overnight. And if you did stop overnight, then I'd be worried that you haven't done or won't do the work that you need. And then you'll be more likely to relapse as a result. Because when you're in periods where you are abstaining from gambling, that's the time to do the work. And you have to do the work if you want to truly overcome it and change the relationship that you have with gambling.
So you personally, you work with gambling addicts. Have you ever tried to go in a casino, lay down some bets, find out what the draw is so you can have some sort of common ground when you sit in front of these people, or you abstain from it completely?
It's so funny you say that, because I've worked with hundreds of clients in the gambling setting, and so many times I've heard this from my clients that just blew me away. They're asking me like, how do I know? How do I really get it? Like, how have I come to this understanding of their experience so consistently with what they're actually going through? And the answer is no, I haven't. I haven't actually gone in. Like my earliest gambling experiences were all losses. Like the handful of times that I did it, I lost money over and over again. I was thinking, why would I want to do this? And by the way, that's the best immunity, right? You lose the first few times.
Yeah.
You're very unlikely. But then again, we don't know who's going to experience what because it's very unpredictable the way the design is made. So that's what I'm saying. Anyone could potentially get into a gambling trajectory and so unexpectedly, and then others would never get into it because by chance they never experienced, the early wins. But I have my clients basically validating that I understand them, and I'm thinking, actually, no, I don't have those same experiences, but I don't need them because I've walked in your shoes with you. I've seen it hundreds of times.
You have the burden of knowledge.
Yeah, and more than knowledge, like a sort of experiential knowledge where when, as a psychologist, as a therapist, you're putting yourself into their shoes. And so, especially for me, when I started, I knew nothing about gambling. So I'm like, I need to absorb and learn from their lived experience. And I did it in such a way that I got to the point where I'm like, I really get it like they get it, even though I haven't experienced it. And as a result, I get the addiction and I also get the recovery side. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to help people like by showing that we get it. Like we really do understand what you're going through. And we have some ways and we have approaches and we have like a system that is being that has been built outside of the existing framework where help and support is provided intentionally that way because I realize that where we usually find the support and treatment services is in the gambling ecosystem itself. So I'm like, hold on. If I'm going to do something, I can't go in there and touch any of their funding because all of that ties into gambling. You just have to trace it back.
All the helplines are funded by the casinos. It's like cancer research being funded by the cigarette companies.
Yeah. It's just like that. So, for me, I was, if I'm going to do this, I got to do it outside of that system. And we got to build something that is almost like new and different to what you would expect because what's in the system isn't designed to end the system. It's designed to keep it going. It's designed to serve the bottom line ultimately. And for me, the bottom line isn't theirs. The bottom line is people's lives and what they can become and what they're building towards that gambling derailed. So like I think about for me, right, most people don't fall into this degenerate category. They fall in like a hopeful a vision of a beautiful life category. And I believe that most people who are gambling can achieve that still. And, we're just trying to help as many people as we can.
So I'm going to relate this to the police world. I have a lot of law enforcement as the audience here, and I'm going to relate this to the police world. Every cop, every retired cop, before they go to bed at night, they will double check their locks on their doors because we know what the psychological effect is of a house being broken into to the family. Even though our house has never been broken into. So we didn't have to experience that break-in in order to have that hypervigilance. And that's kind of where you sit. You don't need to have that experience of gambling, but you still have that hypervigilance about the outcomes of it, the horrible outcomes of it.
I know what winning feels like, okay? And I know that in the gambling context, it's an amplified version of winning. It's another version of it. And it's especially when it comes to money, especially when it comes to the high and the hit that you feel. So you're right. I don't need to experience that. I also know what loss feels like. And I know how devastating it is. And just seeing anytime I lose any money, I don't feel great about it. So,
a lot of that comes from your parents. I grew up very poor, right?
Yeah.
So I've worked for everything, every nickel that I have, and I'll be damned if I'm going to go give it away to somebody.
Exactly.
Like that's what keeps me, like that's just not in my atmosphere because I work too hard for my money.
And you have that immunity too, right? So there's ways of kind of developing a sort of immunity. Some you're raised with, others you have to kind of figure out along the way. And that's what I'm trying to just help people figure out what is their form of immunity? What is the way that we can empower the voice that becomes way more compelling than the voice to gamble, the one that says, that's enough. It's not worth it. Let's let's grow in other ways. Let's change this for real, and let's commit to this process and to this journey, to the life that we deserve to have.
So, Michael, we're coming to the end of this thing here. Why don't you throw out some plugs? Where can our audience find you?
Yeah, thank you. So you can find me on LinkedIn. You just look up Dr. Michael Zhang, and I love to connect with people. If you're listening to this and you're like, you know what, maybe he was talking about me today, just reach out to me. We're happy to help you get set up. And especially the what we have available is very low cost and affordable. If anyone, and we can talk about setting something up for them so that we can give them an extended look into our app. It's called Incumental, and you can download it at incumental.com. It's available on the App Store and the Play Store, currently in the US, in the UK, and in Australia. It's a great place to start, because that's what's been missing, I think, this whole time, like a real place to start for recovery support, and to do it privately too. So incumental.com, and if you want to connect with me, go to LinkedIn, add me, Dr. Michael Zhang, and I'd love to meet with you and get to know you and see if I can help you in any way possible.
I think that's fantastic, because you're taking something that's such a hidden addiction, and you're bringing it to light, and you're actually, so it's great to be an advocate against gambling addiction, but it's another thing to actually have a plan on how to do it. And it sounds like you have that down. So I end every show the same way. I've been doing it since the beginning, and I believe that suffering is the greatest teacher on the planet. Suffering will teach you lessons that you can't learn anywhere else. You have borne witness to these people who have destroyed their life through gambling. Something so easy, something so innocuous, something so frictionless. And I love that word, frictionless. And it's had to teach you something. So if you look at the suffering of gambling, I would like to know what that's taught you.
You can have the life that gambling was masquerading for you, that anyone can have that life. But it doesn't, it's not an easy journey. So, and then for me personally, I think about the suffering of gambling, and I realize that even though I've mentioned some things about, I had this experience, I didn't have that experience. The reality is that anyone could be suffering financially, anyone could be suffering mentally, anyone could be suffering in physically in any number of ways. And ultimately, there is a strength like within us, and we can find that. And no matter what the context is, I believe that we are all capable of digging in and finding something that allows us to really just grow. And that's my focus in life. And I hope that's the focus for the people that I'm helping as well.
I think you're demonstrating that there's always a way out.
Yeah.
There's always a way. Michael, thank you so much for coming in here. I really do appreciate it. I hope you don't have to fly back to Australia tonight. You're going back to Vegas, I hope. Listen, if you're working with gambling addicts, there's no better place than Vegas. You're in the right place. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
And that's going to do it for this episode of The Suffering Podcast, The Suffering of Gambling with Michael Zhang. And let's think about all the stuff that we learned. We're always chasing something. Over time, the house always wins. Chasing the rush enables the fall. Addictions are all the same, but most importantly, gambling over time means loss. And that's going to do it for this episode. Don't forget to go to popl.com, put in the code TSP20 for a 20% discount on your digital business card. Follow us on all social media. That's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, OnlyFans. Follow me at Real Kevin Donaldson, and of course, follow the Suffering Podcast. We'll see you on the next episode.